Welcome back to the podcast, ladies. I am excited to introduce you to my newfound friend, Zora. Oh, Zora, oh my goodness. How do you say your last name?
Benhamou.
Benhamou. Zora Benhamou. I could have probably figured that out, but I didn't want to butcher it. So I found Zora probably last year through her podcast because she has a very similar audience as mine, where she is targeting women over 50 going through this journey in life. And I loved her podcast. We actually had many similar guests, and then our mutual friend Nat Nidham introduced us, and so we decided, well, we better get on each other's podcasts. So Zora is a gerontologist passionate about aging and menopause. She is on a mission to disrupt ageist stereotypes in social media and is the host of the Hack My Age podcast, focusing on biohacking for women going through the menopause transition. Zora is a 52-year-old digital nomad, traveled to over 50 countries, lived in 8, and speaks 6 languages. She founded the website hackmyage.com. The Hack My Age podcast is the author of the Longevity Master Plan and cookbook Eating for Longevity, and creator of online programs for women in peri and postmenopause. You see why I liked her, everybody? Her social media and podcast following reaches over 100,000 people and is growing quickly. She is also a member of the Gerontological Society of America and the Aging Society of America. Zora received a master's of gerontology at the prestigious University of Southern California, where she won Most Valued Master's Student and graduated with a summa cum laude honors. Woo! She is a certified sports nutrition coach and Oxygen Advantage advanced breath work instructor. Whew, you have quite the bio, Zora. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I turned 53 last week. So,
Oh, well, happy birthday. We better change that bio then. Hey,
I'm moving on up.
well, you are obviously living what you're preaching, because you look absolutely amazing. Like that picture that's on your podcast graphic. And then I went and looked at it on your website. You just have the most amazing physique on you. Like I was like, oh, that's what I want to look like.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So you're
Yes,
practicing what you preach, for sure.
I do. I do.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
work hard.
Yeah. Okay. So gerontology, it's just such a, I don't know why, but I think of like people in like an old folks home almost, like, like with their canes that are in their 90s when I think of something, when gerontology. So explain, because I know that's not really what it is. So what is gerontology?
That's exactly what I thought it was. And
Yeah.
it's
Okay, good.
gerontology, gero,
Oh,
like when you
gero. So I
think
was
of
saying it wrong.
geriatric. Yeah.
Yes.
So it is so much more than that. And I decided to study. I went to USC, which is where Dr. Walter Longo, he's the very famous for the fasting mimicking diet, a brilliant scientist. And I was very attracted to USC. And there was a program called the Health Span and Longevity Masters or something. And that was originally what I wanted to do, but I couldn't because you have to spend a certain number of months in the US, and I needed to do this online. So the program director told me about gerontology, and I had the exact same answer as you. And she's like, no, you have no idea. So gerontology is the study of aging and longevity. And so when I explained what I really wanted, I wasn't just about nutrition, because that was more of a nutrition degree that I was looking at. And I was like, no, I don't want to be a nutritionist. I'm coaching enough people already, and I don't want that. I want to learn more about aging and longevity. So a gerontologist is someone who studies aging and longevity, but we don't just look at the biological perspective, but we look at the psychological and the sociological perspective as well. And we look at the whole lifespan. So from birth to death, it's, we do focus a lot on the older adult community and how to advocate for them and their needs, which are very different depending on your race and your gender and your health. But we want to understand how people are aging throughout the life course. Why are they getting certain diseases? What what can we do about them? How can we prevent these things? And that was what I was really, really interested in. There's a whole other component that I wasn't aware of in terms of social policy and how to advocate for these, for the rights of older adults. And it was very US focused, but we did study a lot of other things around the globe. But we needed to make sure we protect them and their rights in terms of housing and transportation and medical services. And so there's so much to unpack there. And it's such an interesting field of study that I really think a lot of people need to learn more about it. And it's not just about older adults. And we're all going to be older adults at one day if we're lucky. So it will apply to you. For sure.
Right. Yes. So did you find that there is a big difference between how we treat older people in North America versus Europe? Because I've heard there's a huge difference. And looking at Walter Longo's work, how much more community-based European countries are. And I know that you're right now in Spain, traveling Europe. So do you see that there is a difference in how they're being treated and looked after?
Is not as big of a difference as we think it is. There was a very large study that was done on not all the countries in the world, but I think was maybe, I don't know, 60 more or less. I can't remember the study, but it did look at all of these countries, and they found out that actually Europe and the US, North America, wasn't that much different in terms of the way people are treating their older adults. And we were looking at ageism, which is another ism. It's actually, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but in terms of people's attitudes and the way they treat older adults, isn't that much different. It was a very much bigger difference between, say, Europe and North America and Asia, where the older adults are treated differently and they have different beliefs about aging, and that affects as well as their health. And we can get into that later too. But yes, there's in Europe, are older adults more part of the social fabric? It may seem that way when it's just pure observation. I'm a nomad, so I've been to so many countries and I travel all the time. And it does, because to me, it seems versus North America, because we don't seem to, there are a lot of smaller communities that have been there for centuries, right? And so the people will walk to the store, they'll have a lot of older communities play chess in the afternoon, or they seem to be a little bit more part of the social fabric, walking around, and you see them, and they're more prevalent. Whereas in North America, I'm from LA, so I don't spend, and I've been to all the bigger cities in the US, so I see that we always in a car. And even when we live in a suburb, we're just always in a car. And you see that that happens, of course, here in Europe as well, but it seemed to be there much more pockets of villages or places where people just walk everywhere.
Yeah. And they tend to be healthier communities, are they not, compared to our North American, because of that? Like if they're just getting more exercise, they're eating better, more whole foods.
Yeah, well, we had this. I asked Dr. Walter Longo the same thing, and because he was my professor, and what he told me was, this is basically been the statistics that are coming out, is that historically, yes, but it's changing because we have more of the sort of high refined junk foods that are coming into these areas. And of course it's cheap and it's tasty. And so that is changing. And I see this, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Spain, and there's a lot of sunshine, and things are growing. And if you go to the markets, there's all kinds of fruits and vegetables. But if you go to a cafe or a restaurant, it's pretty much some kind of a meat and a potato. And very little vegetables are offered on the menu. And I'm like, where's the Mediterranean diet here? Like, what is going on? And so, yeah, I mean, they may eat more vegetables than maybe the standard American diet, but it's not as much as we think it is. And that's the portions are different in terms of the diet, and that's maybe smaller portions or more variety, but the the average age in terms of longevity in Spain, they're one of the leaders, and that's really great, but it is changing, and people are getting more the same diseases as any other developed country.
Yeah. And is obesity going up then too in
Mhm.
in those countries? That's
Yeah.
sad, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever interviewed or read the book Eat Like the Animals? Did you interview those authors? Oh, you should. Oh,
No.
read the book. Oh my gosh, it's so fascinating. But they talk about this in their book about, because these guys went and visited all these like kind of hunter-gatherer tribes. They were in like the depths of Africa and all these other places, and talking about the food that was being brought in to these places, these little
Mhm.
villages in the middle of nowhere, and how they're being brought in, bags of the chips and the candies and the like just super processed, horrible foods. And they talk about just how like crushing that was for them to see that that it was impacting so many areas of our world now.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. I was in Bhutan, which is not a very big tourist destination. Not a lot of tourists are going there, and it's very hard to get there. And we went to so many little villages, and yeah, you would see people with a little Coke in their hand and some candies and chips, and it's just thought, oh gosh, I hope it's just a treat.
You're
I hope
right.
this is not like a daily thing. But yeah, do you see? That's the brilliance of Coca-Cola. They're just everywhere in terms of business. I mean, I'm not I'm
Yes.
not advocating drinking Coke, but and in terms of business, you will find them in the middle. Find Coca-Cola in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll start to reverse, because we're seeing things somewhat reversing, I think, in North America, where people are getting a better head on their shoulders. And we know now that, okay, maybe we shouldn't be drinking Coke and
Yeah.
on a daily, or giving it to our children. At least the ladies all listening to our podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So gerontology.
Gerontology.
Yes, sorry. Gerontology. I'll get that. Um, what did you discover then? Like, what is aging us? What ages us the fastest? Or like, can we narrow that down, or no, it's too broad?
Yes. Well, yeah, it is very broad, and depends on so many factors. But we do know it depends on your genetics, it depends on your lifestyle, it depends on your habits and your diet. There are so many things, because when you think it's not just one thing like diet. I've seen people thrive on so many diets: high carb, low carb, high
Same.
fat, low fat. And just it's meat, no meat, dairy, no dairy. It's just everywhere. People are eating certain diets and they're thriving, and it works for them. So it's not just a diet, but we do know that the biggest risk factor for all diseases is age, and that
Mhm.
we can't control. And then the second after that would be smoking, right? So
Yeah.
smoking
Yeah.
is accelerated aging. So
Of
we want to
course.
make sure we quit if you want to have a long lifespan and a long health span, because that smoking increases your risk for all of these diseases. Being female actually lowers our risk. So that's that's a risk of dying early, right? Because women do live longer, but we do get more diseases, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, we are living longer too, so you have more chance to get sick. So there are a lot of things that play. You know that once you start physical exercise, of course, that lowers the risk. There's a lot of things that contribute to living a long, healthy life. One thing that was really interesting and people want to think about as well is childhood trauma or trauma in general. That will depending on what it is and how you're processing it, may accelerate aging. And that's
Wow.
not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
Is
so
that
we
where your
want,
breath work? Do you do some of that like trauma work with your breath work that you do?
I don't do trauma breath work.
No.
I did the oxygen advantage is more like how it's functional breathing. Like how should we breathe all throughout the day? And
Oh.
that's what I think is pretty important. The trauma release breath work, this conscious connective or rebirthing breath work, that you need another training for that. And that is very powerful, very intense. And that is definitely a really very, very good way I would recommend to try to overcome certain trauma, because it's not it's not the stress or the trauma itself, it's the actual perception of that is day in and day out, day in and day out. These are like 1,000 cuts going on inside your body. And that's very impactful. And this is when we were studying the American population, African Americans have shorter lifespans than white people. And this is partly due because of racism. And if you're not a minority, you don't really know what that's like, but it's having 1,000 insults every single day. And you can't change the color of your skin. You can't change the way people treat you. The African Americans would get different treatment from a doctor for the same problem as a white person. There's a lot of disparity in the medical system for different minorities, and it's got to change, at least in the US. So that impacts their health span and their lifespan, not only because they're feeling the stress every single day, multiple times a day, but they will not get the same medical care as someone else who's not a minority. And that, well, if you're not getting the medical care, if you're not getting the medicine for your diabetes or for whatever it is that you have, then you're not going to live as long. And that's not fair. And that's got to change.
Yeah, I would think there's probably some stuff towards women as well in that camp, right?
Yep.
Being treated differently because we're women.
Yep, absolutely. So
yeah,
that has an impact on your health and your lifespan.
Yeah.
Sure.
Where does alcohol come in to lifespan, like longevity? Because if smoking's number 2, where's alcohol?
Well, alcohol, drugs, smoking, these are called risky behaviors, and it will negatively impact your health span and your lifespan. So I know there are a lot of people out there, but what about the study that red wine is really good for you?
I hope that's been like debunked now, because I know like Huberman talked about it, thank goodness, on his podcast, and was like, no, like, give me a break. You'd have to drink so much wine to get the benefits of, the resveratrol. Or like, just take resveratrol, don't drink.
Yeah. And if you're looking at the blue zones, because I would say, look at the blue zones. This is where we have they're having a glass of wine. So when you look at the blue zones, and these are areas of parts of the world where there are high concentrations of centenarians. These are people who are living over the age of 100, and people go there to try to understand, why are they living so long? Is it something they're eating? Is it something they're doing? And is it their genes? And so I was wondering, well, in the blue zones, they say that these people are having a glass of wine or having a little bit of alcohol, but the case is they are drinking, but they're not drinking excessively. They usually have it for a celebration. It's not like every weekend. They're not binge drinking. And personally, this is no scientific evidence, but when I observe these people, I think it's not the alcohol that's helping them live longer. It's getting together with their friends. It's socializing. It's nurturing their network. It's getting that oxytocin up from bonding with people. And I think that we know through the Harvard study of adult development that having good positive relationships is the biggest contributor to lifespan. Wow. So if that's true, then I don't think it's the alcohol. I think it's something else.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we do it in excess here in North America. Like, it's not just like, oh, let's just have a glass of wine with our friends. It's let's have several bottles of wine in most cases.
Yeah. And every weekend, right?
And every weekend or every night, if you're a woman at home with your children, like that's always like the thing, right? Oh, I have to have my glass of wine every single night at dinner hour or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it is something that ages women very quickly, unfortunately. Sorry to be the one to say this, and I don't judge anybody. I was an alcoholic for a very large portion of my life. But I do know that, women that are trying so hard to take care of themselves, they're eating right, they're exercising, they're doing all the things, but they won't let go of the alcohol. And I'm like, it's the alcohol is going to be one of the main contributing factors to how your hormones are functioning, how you can lose weight or not lose weight. Like it has a massive impact on us, as well as just aging physically, like our faces, wrinkles,
Mm-hmm.
bloatedness, that kind of thing. So I feel like I feel pretty strongly about it as far as aging
Yes,
goes.
I agree. In terms of aging, and you're the menopause queen, and in terms of the detoxification pathways and how alcohol is disrupting the detoxification of estrogen. And then, I mean, we don't need that as we're going through menopause. And it's bad news for those who really like to have
Yes.
their alcohol. But again, that's I think it's everything is people have to figure out what is working for them or not. And sometimes
Yeah.
we don't really want to look at the things that are bringing us the biggest pleasure, and we'll try to find other excuses, but something to take a look at if you
Yeah.
want to live a long, healthy life.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I've heard you talk about often is energy. Like as women are aging and we get to this midlife time, that's definitely one of the largest complaints that I'll hear about is I just have no energy. Can you tell us why that is? Like, why is it that we lose energy? And I feel like it's much more than men do. So does it have something to do with hormones, mitochondria? What's going on there?
Yeah, there's so many things when it comes to energy,
I
right?
know. Yeah.
and and there's so many reasons, and this is why we made a program on that, because
Mhm.
we wanted to try to give the most choices to which pathway to go look down. But when we're feeling tired or feeling fatigued, it's not normal aging. I'm sorry, that's not doesn't supposed to happen. Okay.
Right.
We can get tired from time to time or exhausted from something, but we shouldn't be feeling fatigued day in and day out. That's a sign that there could be something wrong. There's
Mhm.
something going on in your body, and your body's trying to talk to you, and you got to listen to it, what's happening. And very often it just boils down to the mitochondria. This is the little organelle inside our cells. That is the powerhouse. You've probably heard the powerhouse of the cells that gives us energy, takes food, breaks it down, gives us ATP, which is our energy currency. So we very often want to, when we talk about how are we going to fix this, we want to talk about, well, let's optimize the mitochondria. So how do we optimize the mitochondria? And there's, again, many different ways, but first I would say, look at what's the possibility. The low hanging fruit is, well, are you getting enough sleep? Well, and then it's just like, they always have a huge chunk of women who are like, well, yeah, actually, maybe that is. And I'm like, well, great. You're not sick. You don't have some disease. There's nothing going on. Just go get more. And that's really hard, especially if you're going through menopause, because we maybe have night sweats and hot flashes and wake up in the middle of the night and can't fall asleep again. And that's hormonal, right? So how can we then we say, well, how do we attack the hot flashes? And then that could be hormone replacement therapy, it could be cognitive behavioral therapy, it can be many other things. So in terms of energy, really have to, I always try to find the root cause of the issue. What could it be? And again, not to panic if you're feeling tired from time to time, or you just got in from a long flight, or you're trying to recover from jet lag and maybe that's taking a little bit longer. But there are many reasons why we get fatigued. Our NAD or NAD stores, and I'm sure you probably talked about NAD.
Nope, I
No?
haven't.
Oh,
Nope. I was going to ask you about it.
okay. Well, NAD is, yeah, with this mitochondria, I told you mitochondria and NAD, they work hand in hand. So NAD, our body makes NAD naturally, and this helps us give us more energy. I'm just going to keep it really simple. So when we are born, we have plenty of NAD, which is like kids spinning around and they can't stop. They got a lot of NAD. And as we age, we start to lose our NAD, but it doesn't have to. In fact, there are studies done on healthy older adults. I can't remember if I think when they were in their 70s, more or less. I'm thinking about one particular study, and these adults were actually athletic for most of their lifetime. Their NAD stores weren't going down. So it's not, again, it has to happen with age. There's so many things that we think is normal aging, and in
Yeah.
terms of fatigue or the way you walk or your posture or being mood changes, all of this stuff is not normal aging. And if you are having those, it could be something is wrong. It could be you have some medical issue. It's just like with any other age. it's maybe common, certain things around you, but it's not normal aging. So we can change things. We can boost our NAD stores. And what a great way to do that is through exercise. But you might go, well, how am I going to exercise if I'm feeling so tired? Right. And there's many other ways we can do that. You can also take supplements, or, you know, I don't, supplements are also very controversial. It depends how you do it. Yeah. And I wouldn't say do that, but I have worked with some clients who are in that sort of zone, and we're like, okay, we're going to use a little bit of supplementation just to give a crutch to get you out the door, and then we can stop. And sometimes those things help as well. So lots of great ways we can boost our NAD, optimize our mitochondria. And we don't have to remember these words, and we don't have to to go buy supplements or anything, but we do need to take a look at why we think we're fatigued. And unfortunately, if you go to the doctor, too often they're saying, oh, well, you're getting older and it's normal. And they just don't have the tools, really. They don't have the way to even measure fatigue. But fatigue is very often a symptom of something else that's going on.
Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of controversy about NAD. I've watched speakers and webinars, and I've like listened to podcasts about it. So and I know you've talked to people like Elizabeth Yurth about it. And what is your take on those supplements versus peptides versus IV of NAD?
Well, supplements. So for example, some people are tired because they have the deficiency of B12 or their iron levels are low. And so if you go to a doctor and just get a blood test and you see that's the issue, well, yeah, let's take some supplementation or change your diet a little bit. Or, you know, I would do both. And that's perfectly fine. I think that's very valid. And I, as a biohacker, I also like to test, measure, and assess, right? Mm-hmm. We're feeling tired. Well, let's do some testing. Let's see your thyroid. Let's go test some B vitamins. Let's go test iron levels, other things. There could be some hormonal imbalances as well. So I love supplements. I think there's a time and a place for them. And I think there's a way to buy them and know how to choose and know when to stop, and, you know, things like that. So I'm not against them at all. I just think that it's kind of the wild west out there, and too many people don't know what they're doing or how to choose and how to buy and when to take them and all this stuff. So I think with the guidance of a doctor or functional medicine doctor, or through health coach or someone nutritionist who understands these things, you can go real far with them, and they're very helpful. But again, I believe that they are a supplement to something already that you're doing, not a replacement. So that I'm very much for. When it comes to NAD, there's always so much controversy. Whenever I hear controversy, I take a step back and I think, okay, maybe I'll do less of it. Maybe I'll give it up, but maybe not, or maybe I'll just do less. I won't go gung ho and take, this is me personally taking stuff like that. I have been convinced by, I had a great podcast with Dr. Nicola Connellan. Have you done a podcast with her?
No.
Oh, she's brilliant. She created a supplement called Nuchido. And what it does, it's not an NAD booster. And she explained why NAD boosters like NMN and NR and these IVs, like why they could be dangerous and harmful. And we should probably start producing our own NAD. So we've talked about a lot of things that can boost it, like exercise, for example. But then if you wanted to supplement, what this supplement does, it has ingredients that are all very natural that actually fix our own NAD making factory. So she was explaining, imagine your body like a factory. And so you have, if you were just to take NMN or NR, just try to boost it, direct inject NAD directly, what you're trying to do is when you have a broken NAD factory, that the pipes are leaking and it can't spit out so many widgets, you're just putting in more raw materials, expecting the factory to make more widgets. And that's just not possible. But if you fix the factory first, and then you add some of those widgets, well, then you've been making your own. Now you can actually start making your own NAD. And
Ah,
was very convincing for me. And so that's that. If I'm using a supplement in terms of an NAD quote unquote booster, that's the one I'm convinced with. So I prefer that. When it
yeah.
comes to IVs, the way I understand it, I've never done it myself, and I don't recommend it because they're so expensive. And I've learned that actually they don't last very long. It's kind of like you spend a lot of money for a very short boost, and then it just kind of goes away very quickly. And it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to do something to fix my factory, or so that I can make my own NAD.
Yeah.
And the last one were peptides, and I'm not familiar with the peptides, so I can't really comment on that. But I love peptides for so many other things, and I would say it's definitely something to investigate, and
And
certainly
maybe
it's
it's
something.
not a peptide, it's just from a peptide company. NAD
Uh-huh.
injectable. That's
Oh,
what
an
it
NAD
is.
injectable,
Yeah,
or
sorry.
bioregulators. There's some bioregulator peptides that perhaps may help.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my take on it. And
Thank
we
you.
didn't study this in gerontology.
Okay.
and I wish they did. This is from my
Yeah.
biohacking experience. No, they didn't. And so that was a little disappointing, but I taught them something.
Yeah,
They
there
were
you
happy to
go.
hear about it.
Did they
Uh,
did they talk about hormones in gerontology? The loss of
yes, but
hormones?
very little.
Ah,
Very little.
I think
Yeah.
that ages us probably more than anything. Well, I'll tell
Yes,
you my
I did certain papers on it, and because
did you?
I did certain all my
You're
anytime I
teaching
had to
them
do.
that too.
Yeah, if I had to do a paper, a research paper, I always did it on menopause and women, and I just try to, and I definitely made that comment where, I mean, just made myself known that we need more studies on females and women going through menopause, and older adults. I mean, older adults, they're very conscious that there's very little research on older adults. And I'm talking about the oldest, the oldest old, maybe 70, 80,
Yeah.
that category. We need more research. It's just not enough. I mean, it's already bad
Oh,
enough that
yeah.
we don't have enough research on women, but also older adults. That has to really change because the population is aging, and
Yeah.
we don't. How could we recommend something if we don't have enough research on it?
Yeah, no, menopause and perimenopause is not taught in medical schools anywhere. Like I heard less than 7% of doctors will learn about menopause. And then I actually heard 0% learn about menopause. So somewhere between
Yeah.
0 and 7, which is not much. And I've talked to like even the doctors that I work with. I remember him saying like, Karen, I learned nothing about menopause in my school. And he's a hormone doctor. So it was like,
Yeah.
but my NAD story was I had COVID twice. And the second time I had it, it just wasn't, I just was so tired afterwards for so many weeks. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to my naturopath and get an IV. And she said, well, let's do an NAD IV with vitamins and minerals, the cofactors for NAD. She said, you should really be putting it together because a lot of practitioners will only give NAD. And she said, some people can actually feel sick if they do that because they don't have the
Yeah.
cofactors, like exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking about. So we did 3 treatments, and it was almost instantaneous that it brought me out of that fog of COVID. It felt really good. And by the third one, I was like, yes. And I was going to go in for a fourth. And my body just gave me a hard no, like, oh, no, too much. Don't do it again. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I canceled my next one. And I've been feeling great since. Like I never went back into the COVID slump, which was great.
Wow.
And there was a girl in there that had long COVID, and she told me the same story. She said, it wasn't until I started doing these NAD treatments that I got out of it.
Oh, very
And
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's
do
well.
feel like there is like a every person will probably have that like top where it's too much for the system, like you're going to overload it, that it can't
Mhm.
process it or something, like fill
Yeah.
up the stores but don't overfill the cup.
Yes. And it sounds like it was it was a targeted approach. So
Yes.
even if it's true that it doesn't last very long, that's all you needed to overcome the last COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was strange.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying all that. I appreciate it. What does she have? Can you just say a couple of the things that's in that supplement? Do you remember?
Yes. Parsley, for example,
Oh,
And I remember that was a very strange ingredient.
Yes.
There's niacin as
Okay.
well, a alpha lipoic acid. There was some zinc. I should know these by heart, but very simple ingredients. I think there was NR because, in fact, that's sort of the widgets. That's, let's say, the widgets. I mean, not the widgets, the raw material that you're bringing in, but it's the other stuff that's going to fix the factory so that you can spit out more widgets, more NAD.
Right.
You should look at it. I think I'll connect you and you can do a podcast, because it was such an eye-opening podcast. After that podcast, I stopped looking at NMN and NR and NAD boosters, and just because I liked the approach, and what Dr. Conlon, she used to work in a in a, I don't want to call it anti-aging business laboratory. She's a scientist and a researcher, and she was they had to make drugs for aging. And so they did all of these trials and testing different ingredients. And because they were using natural ingredients, it couldn't be patented. They had to throw out the data and the research that was actually helping. And that's when she quit. She said, this is just not right. I have to go make a drug that can be patented. And we have all these natural ingredients that are doing the same thing, if not more.
Wow. And what's the product called again? Can you say it again?
Nuchido, Nuchido.
I'm going to link to it, everybody, in the show notes, just in case you're curious about it. And then I'll have her on the podcast to talk about it.
Yes.
Nuchido. Okay. Awesome. Okay. You look so fantastic. We already talked about that. What is the best exercise then? Because obviously you've got that super dialed in. And what did you learn in gerontology that says, how should we be exercising as we're aging?
So gerontology says,
did I say it wrong again?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh,
think of it, so geriatric
I just think
physicians, like, say, for example, geriatrics is one thing. Gerontology.
I only speak for a living, Zora, so
genes, yeah. But actually, a lot of people say that same thing. Don't worry, you're not the only one. I should every time somebody interviews me about gerontology, I have to make sure I say that.
Yeah.
So in terms of exercise, what is taught in gerontology is one thing, and then I'm going to tell you my personal opinion too.
Yes.
So in gerontology, moving exercise is great, right? We need to move. We need some cardio. That's good for your cardiovascular health. The recommendation for other exercises as well, that is when you're talking about lower, we had great sessions on stress and the mind-body connection. So things like Tai Chi, yoga, things that bring cortisol down. This is very good. Mobility and agility is another, any exercises that give you that, so that we don't become stiff and we're able to be independent, and we can go and do things and walk upstairs and carry our groceries, things like that. And there was also there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Oh yeah. So as well as having strength exercises, because we talked a lot about frailty and falls. Okay. When you're frail and you don't have muscle mass and you fall, you can get a hip fracture. When you get a hip fracture, there is actually a very high risk of dying within the 6 months.
50% or more, or something like that?
Something very high. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, it is very high.
Yeah.
And people go, well, why? And that's partly because sometimes infections happen. Sometimes we don't recover so well, and things kind of spiral out of control. When you can't move and you can't be independent, you can't go see your friends, you can't go out, you stay at home because things hurt, or you just don't have the strength. And then you become a little depressed. And then when you have depression and you have higher cortisol levels and you have more of a chronic inflammation. I mean, there's so many reasons why you can have an early death because of a fall. And I was so surprised. I said, why are we spending so much time talking about falls, until we learned about falls? And I was, oh, wow, this really is a big deal. And this is why strength training is really, really important, and keeping your muscle mass. And I've learned not only from my master's program, but as well from so many people I've done podcasts, interviews with who are in the fitness area. This sarcopenia, age-related muscle mass loss, it's not normal aging. It's not normal aging. It's having a sedentary life.
Right.
So you got to get off the couch and start moving. It's not going to happen to everyone. It will happen if you stop moving, if you stop exercising, if you stop, you don't have to go to a gym. I mean, the longest people living in the world they're not going to a gym, but they're moving and they're agile, they're walking, or they're doing things. When we want to get in a better body composition, we have to do more than just walking. Okay. So when we're doing some strength training, it'll be different for somebody, a woman who's 80 than a 50-year-old woman, which clearly the different types, but the basis is, yes, we want to lift heavy things. We want to get strong. We need to get muscle mass and lean muscle mass in order, not only just, the falls, but for many other physiological functions in the body that are very, anti-aging. I hate that word anti-aging, but slows the progression of age. And on top of it, you just have a better quality of life, because what do we want? If you ask an older adult what they want to be independent. They don't want to be a burden on their family. They don't want people taking care of them. They want to be able to do their own things and walk to the store, carry their own groceries. And you just can't do that if you don't stay mobile, agile, and strong. And flexibility as well is a very important one. So when I work a lot with women going through the menopause transition, and we got to add all of these things, definitely something to keep the cortisol, and that's in terms of yoga or Pilates, stretching, some mobility exercises. Then I would add some cardio. We know that HIIT training, high intensity interval training, is really great because it's that sort of short burst that it doesn't have our cortisol levels raised constantly. If you're running for an hour and you think that's going to burn the fat and that's going to be really good for me at this age and this stage in life, unless you're so passionate about it and you love it, and yes, you keep it in your life somehow, but you don't need to do that. We want to have more. And HIIT training is more, you have 20 seconds on, or 30 seconds, 45 seconds, sometimes on, then you have a rest for 10 or 15 seconds, up and down, up and down. They don't last more than 45 minutes max. And if you're doing Tabata training, which is even more intense, 20 seconds on, like 100%. Imagine you're on a bicycle and you're just going as fast as you can. You get pretty pooped after 20 seconds, and then you rest 10, and then you're on it again. And you do 8 rounds of that, you're exhausted. So you can only do 15 minutes and you're kind of done with your workout. That's pretty good. And then we want to have the strength training, just like anything else. That, for me, in my clients, I've seen biggest fat burner ever. And it's empowering. Have you, I don't know if you've worked with your clients who they've started lifting heavy things or weight training, strength training. They feel so empowered. And that's what I love so much about it too. They feel strong. And really, that's my personal objective, to go through life strong and independent. And then, so that's why I work at it. And I try to maintain that as long as I possibly can.
Yeah, I agree completely. It was the thing that finally moved the needle for myself, even with menopausal weight gain. I was doing everything right. I mean, I'm a weight loss coach. I was replacing the hormones, and it wasn't till I finally started to lift heavy consistently that the weight finally started to come off. And I had changed nothing else. Like, it was just that I added some more protein in to match my workouts.
Yes.
But then finally it started to creep down. So I'm 100% with you on that. You're going to have to get my partner, Pam Sherman, on your podcast. She does all of our videos for our programs. She's 54, I think 54, 55. She's got a body like yours. She's just like, she looks fantastic. And she's all about weight training for women over 50. And I love her to death. So she'd be a great fit for your podcast.
Please connect us.
Yes, I will, for sure. Yeah, she's been on my show many times.
Oh, she has? Okay. So they all know you got to I don't want people to just go out and start lifting really heavy and break their back or
No.
something like that. Make sure you get training on how to do this first.
Yes.
And one thing I've been preaching for so long, and I think I still hold true to this, is the best exercise is the one that you like.
Yeah.
If you like tennis, if you like to run, if you like to do Tai Chi, whatever it is, like do it, because you're more likely to stick with it. And we need to move. So you can add on to it. I do like usually I recommend always having the strength, the cardio, and the flexibility, mobility / agility. Like we need those three. I hate people just doing yoga all day long or running all day long or strength training all day long. You need variety. And this is what I see works best for me and my clients. And I see as we age, we can do all of these things. We just may need to modify them slightly if you get injured or something happens. Things happen, right? So you have to just adjust. If certain things you can't play basketball like you used to, well, okay, you can play it a little bit differently. That's very, very important that we do adjust as we age if needed.
Yeah. No, Pam has a video that that's in our library of just getting up off the ground. And she's like, you won't believe how challenging this is for people. And she said, fire departments in California, they say that this is one of the biggest risk factors, is that you fall on the floor. A lot of people can't get up.
Yes.
And she's like, it sounds so silly and simple, and then I will have members that will be like, oh my gosh, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be, like lying on the floor and then standing up from there. Like,
yes,
that in and of itself is something to practice.
Yes. And if you can do that already, if you're like, it's easy, I can do it, try it without using your hands.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you can do it, then you try to find 5 ways to do it without your hands. You can always take it up another notch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, something that I know you and I are both big advocates for is just changing the way that women are seen as we age in midlife. It's not positive, and we have a lot of pressure on us to stay young looking. And what are your thoughts on that? And what can you tell women that can help them move through this time with confidence and embrace their aging?
Such a good question. It's a good question because we live in a society, in this Western society, that idolizes youth. And you can go back to the beginning of time. You'll find paintings historically and Socrates, of people talking about the fountain of youth. It's nothing new, but because we have social media, it seems to get stronger and stronger, and then we have solutions as well. So Botox, or you can have weight loss peptides, or you have always a solution. The problem is that if we keep chasing youth, this is, in my opinion, it can be exhausting. It can be very expensive. And women going through midlife really struggle with this because we're no longer young. We start to see that our youth is fading, but we're not old either. We're in this transition where we're like, oh, maybe now I should start using eye cream, or maybe now, because you're starting to see the signs of aging, and we want to reverse this. For me, the best thing to do is to find that confidence in yourself, whether it is you decide, I want to do Botox and I really want to wear makeup every day and I want to dress cute, or whatever it is that makes you happy, do it. If you like your gray, you embrace your wrinkles, and you want that's perfectly good too. Just know what you want, know who you are, and find that confidence. That confidence is really hard to find in our society as it is. But I don't advocate for somebody to say, I'm just going to let it all go. I want people to take care of their health. I want them to take care of themselves. And so when you take care of yourself, you'll feel better. Your confidence will go up because you're taking care of yourself. It doesn't matter whether you're dyeing your hair or not. It is just having good nutrition, getting your exercise, getting good sleep, managing your stress, all of this is super important. And that will reflect in the way you feel about yourself and the way you look. So really it's a journey, and I think we're right in the middle of it. And we're in this area where we want to find peace with that, and find that balance in between, taking good care of ourselves, but also not spending all our money, all our time, and then just being disappointed with never being happy enough or pretty enough or thin enough or good enough. So work on your self-confidence, whatever that technique may be, because there's 1,000,001 recipes for that. But do that, and then everything else will be much easier.
I love that, because the opposite of that is doing all these things that you want to do for yourself to stay looking younger, but not having the confidence. Like you keep trying all these different things and surgeries or stuff to your face and your body, and never being happy with it, and just continuing to, cut yourself down and look at yourself poorly and have poor self-image.
The worst is to say, I will be happy when.
Right.
That we can't do that. It doesn't happen. I know you've worked with clients, and I've worked with clients like that, and you've got them to a position where they wanted to be in, and they're like, they're still not happy. Well, there's something else going on. So happiness is probably what we should be chasing, if anything, and it's not to be happy all the time. It's just finding those things that bring you joy, finding content in yourself, finding that what is it that makes you happy. And it's not going to be when I lose weight or when I get a face surgery or do my Botox. I guarantee you it's not going to be that, because you're just going to go and chase something else.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm okay. You go do what you want to do, but if you can still embrace it, because no matter what you do, you're still going to age. And this is what I try and remind people that are doing multiple plastic surgery. I had a friend that was just one plastic surgery, like an eye lift, a facelift, Botox, injection. And I'm like, you're still going to age. So there has to come a point where you go, let's just embrace the way it is. Like, I get Botox in my forehead, but I don't get them in my crow feet, right? It's like, I'm going to embrace these. I'm going to love them.
I have to mention Dr. Becca Levy. She's a gerontologist, and very interesting research she's done. She published a lot of papers. I think it was around 2002. She wrote the book Breaking the Aging Code.
Oh.
And what she did was she traveled around the world trying to find the secrets of aging. She looked at many different populations. She looked at a lot of longitudinal studies. And what she found was super interesting. So there was one study that I can't remember the name of the study, but it was about 600 something people over the age of 50. And she would ask them about how they feel about aging. What is your perception, or what do you think of it? Is it something we're going to get more wise? We're going to be, it's going to be an interesting journey, or you're excited about it, or you accept it, or you embrace it, whatever. If you had a positive perception or maybe negative self-perception, right? And so she found out that those who had positive self-perceptions about aging and that whole aging process lived 7.5 years longer on average than those other part who were expressing negative self-perceptions on aging. So your beliefs and attitudes about aging really do impact how long you will live.
Wow. I love that. So there you go. That's probably one of the best anti-aging hacks there is. It's just to embrace this. Love it.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So before we go, can you share with us what a day looks like for you, since you are the biohacking queen and you look fantastic, you're doing everything right. Can you kind of just give us an idea of like, what kind of food do you eat? Do you follow a certain kind of diet? What's your exercise routine throughout the week? Is there any supplements or hacks that you feel are like the best that are keeping you young and fresh?
Oh, it's
what are your favorites?
It depends on the good day or not such a good day, right? Because there's days where you're like, oh, everything is, I've got the time, I know I'm doing it. And then your days you're rushed and it's not so perfect. But but I'll give you what I like on a good day.
Okay.
And the best thing about menopause and passing through this transition is that we have more time. Whereas if you had been raising a family, you got finally those kids are grown up or gone, and you can spend more time. So I'm really talking to those women who have a little bit more time, because that's really, really key. And if not, you just shorten everything I say that we're doing. So one thing I've been really into lately is journaling. And I never used to journal myself, but I would recommend it to a lot of my clients. And I saw the resistance, and that happens to me too. But it really does make an impact. And a lot of things, I think women going through this transition very often are looking for themselves again. This is a rebirth. In many Asian cultures, menopause is not negative. It's actually welcome. Yay, we don't have periods anymore. Yay, we can actually participate in certain activities, maybe that you couldn't before. Maybe we can have this regeneration. It's fantastic. And these beliefs also are showing in studies that having a positive belief, having a positive impact on your menopause symptoms. They're lighter, they're less, they're maybe non-existent. They do impact. So it's really important. So that's why I've been journaling a lot. And anything when I wake up, that's one thing I do. And then, so my morning routine is sacred. I really do morning routine. And I go straight outside first thing in the morning. I get sun in my eyeballs. I want to set my circadian rhythm so that when I go to bed, my melatonin is kicking in at the right time. So getting outside, if it's a minimum 15 minutes, just go for a little walk. And I come back, I would do some kind of an exercise routine, or either at home or out or I'm a nomad, so Airbnb or wherever I am. So that is across the board. And then I vary it too, just like I told you. Some days I do more HIIT, some days I do more yoga. Then I would do, I always make myself a big breakfast. I'm a big breakfast person. And so I would generally I make stir fries. I eat a lot of vegetables. So I usually make stir fries with an omelet or some kind of a protein. And then I would get to work. Shower and then get to work. Supplementation, I change all the time.
Yeah.
I vary it. I love trying new supplements and testing. Always there are vitamin D with the D3K2. Then I usually do omegas, but lately I've been doing something called fatty 15. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's a new omega. It's not an omega-3. It's not an omega-6. It's a new omega. I'll have to do a whole other podcast on that. But that's something new I'm trying. Spermidine across the board. I never give up.
You were very convincing with your spermidine. I was listening to and I was like, I think maybe I better try spermidine, because you talk about how great it is for sleep. And I'm like,
yes, I get so much feedback. I'm convinced because I get a lot of feedback on that. So I know it's not just me.
Right.
And it activates autophagy. And as a gerontologist, we know autophagy is that cellular cleanup and recycling process that's so important for aging. So I'm not giving that up. That kind of goes with me everywhere. Those are the main things I take all the time. Everything else, I'm sure that I'm missing out a lot of other things, but I cycle in and out, testing, not testing. And Nuchido, Nuchido kind of cycle in and out. I don't take that all the time across the board.
Any peptides that you take consistently or kind of go on and off of that you really like?
I was doing the bioregulator peptides, and I stopped because of the war in Ukraine. And those peptides are originally Russian. So I'm just holding off on them for now. I think they're great. I think they're quite amazing what they do. Just personally, I haven't been able to test it long enough. I just started and then I was like, oh, darn it. But I think there's something to those. And unfortunately it's patented. I don't know. I haven't found myself any other bioregular peptides from another company, but that's the only peptides. Oh no, I did try BPC 157 in a peptide form, but it didn't really do very much for me, what I was looking for. But I do know that that's a really big one, but nothing I've really stuck with in terms of peptides. I'm trying to think. probably lying. Collagen peptides I take all the time. So I do use protein powders and collagen peptides and these things on an as needed basis. It's not kind of something I do every day.
Mhm.
And then I work and I try to do standing, sitting, standing, sitting. I'm at a standing desk right now. So
Yeah, me too.
I try to keep moving up and down, up and down. So there's movement integrated in my whole day. And then I would trying to think then that after the work day is over, then my sleep hygiene kicks in, and that's really, really important to me. And usually some point in my day, I'm connecting with friends. I think your social network, your bonds, your friends are very, very important to aging. So I try to stay connected, whether it's through texting or a phone call or meeting somebody for a coffee, something like that. That would be definitely integrated in my day somewhere. And then the night routine kicks in. So that's when the sun starts to go down, then the blue blocking glasses come out. And I cheat. I'm on my computer and my phone. I admit it.
I cheat.
But
Our mutual friend Molly would be very disappointed in you.
I know. Well, she does too, and we just wear the blue blocking glasses.
Yeah, I'll be co-working with her, and she'll start to put her. Oh, suddenly it goes black inside her apartment. She puts on her red glasses, and she sits there in the dark while she co-works with us.
Yeah. Molly Eastman, the Sleep
Yeah,
as a Skill she's a queen. I love her and her
she is.
podcast. I've learned so much from her. We lead parallel lives. So that's, I bring out those blue blocking glasses. And then I would, I love having some kind of either journaling, meditation, or lately my new thing is red light therapy. So I have a flex beam. This is a device you can actually lay on your body, and it is amazing, and it heats up and you feel all cozy. And so while that's on, I will listen to New Calm, for example, which is this is sort of acoustic software to get your brain into a very calm meditative state. I call it meditation made easy, because I don't have to meditate, it just happens. And so I put that on, or maybe I'd listen to an audiobook or some music or something while that thing is on my back or my leg or wherever the flex beam is doing the red light therapy. I literally fall asleep in 2 seconds. That's part of my stack. Sometimes that's why I take my spermidine then at night. I take sometimes magnesium, but it's not, again, that comes and goes, or maybe I'm into some new supplement and trying that as well. But I try not to drink too much before bedtime, because I don't like to wake up to pee. So that I don't have any kind of cozy tea. I do recommend it. People like it. I don't really necessarily do that, but that's kind of, I know I'm missing out 100 other things, but I'm always trying something new, but those seem to be going with me wherever I go. And the meditation as well. That's why they're sort of, I try to do at least meditation and breath work in the morning, and I shoot for both morning and evening, but it usually winds up one or the other. But if you shoot for two, you might get one. And it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. I don't have these long 1 hour sessions, but breathing. Oh, I like stacking to killing a lot of birds with one stone. So if I'm doing a meditation in the morning, I do those pelvic exercises too while I'm breathing.
Keep the vagina healthy. Yeah. Healthy, strong.
Kim Vapani taught me some cool, the
Oh,
vagina
yes. Coach. Same. Yeah. Kim's been on my show twice. She lives near me.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
Oh,
we just met each other for the first time in person, actually down in Vancouver where she is. So
yeah, oh, how exciting.
Kim's great. The buff muff.
I'm so jealous. Well, she's with me almost every morning doing exercises. So meditating, and then the breath work, and then the meditation same time. But very interesting thing I've always tested, if you have an Oura ring, any of these gadgets that measure your heart rate variability, your temperature, your heart rate. When I do these meditations, I notice that the first part is usually when I'm doing my exercises in my mind, so maybe a little bit, and then I just go straight into the oxygen advantage breathing, because I do other type of breath work before. Once I get to that type of breathing, the functional breathing, the HRV starts to go up 8 out of 10 times, not every time, but pretty often it starts to go up, heart rate goes down, and having a high HRV, which is heart rate variability, is a measure of stress and recovery for people who are not really sure what is HRV.
Yeah, mine is chronically so low. I actually got rid of my Aura ring because it was stressing me out to see that it was so low. Like 14, it would never get above 14. Maybe 30 was the tops that I would see. Like I was like, this is just stressing me out. And I was like, send it back.
Do you want a hack? I learned
Yes.
a couple. I literally just tested this, and now I'm not really sure because I thought it was one thing and it could be another. So I go on and off. I had to go off of spermidine I went out for 6 weeks, and I went back on. And as usual, I see my heart rate variability always start to rise whenever I go back on it. And then, but at the same time, I did a Zoom call. We have a Facebook group, Biohacking Menopause, and we had I don't know if you know Grace Liu, the gut goddess.
Yeah, I do. I haven't had her on my show, but I know of her.
She came on and she talked about raising HRV, and she said, "Here's your homework." She said, "You get a partner physically. It could be your husband, your wife, your friend, anyone." And you look at them in the eye, and for 10 minutes, you have to tell them why you like them or what you like about them. But it's not like, oh, you're cute or you're nice. You have to get a little bit granular. And if it's your partner, I'm not sure if it's your partner or not, but there's some stroking and petting that's going with this. So you're really raising the oxytocin and there. And it's actually, it's with your partner, it's really sensual. I'm like, this is like tantric sex. I mean, this is interesting. And you get really excited. But I did this exercise and I thought it was spermidine. I was like, yeah, spermidine is kicking in. But then I talked with Grace the other day, and she said, she asked the group, she came again onto the Facebook group. She said, so who did their homework? And I said, actually, I did. And she said to do it 3 times a week. I didn't, I just did it once, but I thought, wow, maybe it is that. Maybe my HRV was up because of that, because that was her HRV hack.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I got to try this. So now I'm experimenting more. My husband really didn't like that exercise so much.
Yeah, no, my husband would be like, no, hard no.
Oh, really? No, my husband did it. He did. I praised him a lot for that.
Yeah.
Because he was like, this is stupid. And then he did like three things. And I was like, okay. And I kept saying, so why? So why do you like me? Why do you like to be around me? What makes you know? And he's like, oh. And then I look at the watch and I was like, no, we need 5 more minutes. He's like, why? You really are like on the dot. Like, it doesn't matter. And then it was my turn. I went like 15 minutes. I was like, it's not that hard. And then we just jumped it and had great sex. So
yeah, right. Then he was okay with it.
Yes. But you can do this if you don't have a partner, you can do it with a friend or a girlfriend or somebody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be like very sexual and sensual, but it is literally because looking someone at the eye does raise your oxytocin, and saying these kind words to each other. It's really wonderful. And I really recommend people doing this to your friends who you really value. I think I say it in text messages. That's the way I kind of am. I'm very loving, and I don't know, I love my friends. My friends are very valuable to me. So text messages, or I see them, and I'm a nomad too. So when I reconnect with my friends, I really tell them how much I love them. And it kind of goes back and forth. It's like this love fest with my girlfriends. And it makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
And I have to say, please tell your friends this. Please tell them how much you love them, or your family, or whoever. I read the eulogy of my best friend when she died in 2017. And she's one of those people I gave love notes to all the time. And I was standing there thinking, my gosh, I'm so glad I said these wonderful words to her. But if you don't, you could be reading the eulogy of your friend or your family and go, shoot, now they can't hear me, right? I needed to say these things when they were here on earth with us. So that's one of my recommendations.
Yeah, that's good. My sisters and I just did that on the weekend. My older sister's son just graduated and we were all there, and she sent us a text message later that night just saying, sisters, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being there. I love all of my nieces and nephews. And then we all like said it back which is great because we don't say it often enough, even though we're so close, right? We're best friends, but we don't say that often enough. So it was really nice. So I appreciate that. You know what I want you to do? I want you to test, because I don't have an Aura ring. I can't test this, is to do this with yourself in the mirror and see what it
Good
does to your
one.
HRV.
Oh my gosh. Good one.
Yeah.
Good.
Talk about all the things that you love about yourself and only be kind and just look at yourself in the eye. And,
How
even like,
long?
well,
Like
how
I
long
need,
did she say to do it?
well, she said 10 minutes.
10 minutes then.
Wow.
Put your
Okay.
timer on 10 minutes, look at yourself in the mirror deeply and do
Yeah.
it and see. I'd be
Oh,
really curious to know if it
I
did
will
something.
try that.
Okay. Awesome.
I will do that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And so I'll do it before bed, because this is usually this HRV stuff is measuring us in the evening,
Yeah.
right? So
Okay.
yeah.
You let me know, because then I'll start practicing that, because I don't think I have anyone that I could do that with.
Oh, I've got homework.
There you go. You got your homework. Okay. And then just one question. What about hormones? Do you replace your hormones? Can I ask you that?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't like the word replacing. I think I'm
Sorry,
just talking.
optimizing. Are you optimizing your hormones?
Yes.
I like to use that
Yes.
word better too.
Optimizing my hormones. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm topping up. Definitely. I take progesterone as a cream, bioidentical. I take estradiol, as this is really cool. I don't know if you have it there in North America. It's a spray. It's kind of new for
No,
me.
I've heard about
To a
this.
cream.
Yeah.
So easy, it dries very quickly. I take estradiol as a vaginal little pellet.
Yeah.
And I take testosterone as a bioidentical cream.
Okay.
But I have different, I don't take it every day, the same dose. It's for me, like the doctor told me to take different times. And I'm still cycling. So I take it for certain times in my period, and it's all
Yeah.
different for everybody, but I am a big believer in it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I love test, measure, and assess. I tested my hormones when I was 50. They were gone. And I was like, that's strange. I had no symptoms other than maybe skin flaccidity. And I was like, where did they go? I should be curled up in a ball crying in the corner because I have no hormones. I mean, I think if I didn't measure, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And for me, optimizing menopause. I want my menopause transition to be smooth. I don't want to one day wake up and feel like I'm falling off a cliff. This is, again, this is what we hear. Not every woman goes through this. Not everyone has experience, but you hear these stories and you think, oh, well, since then I've learned. But at the beginning, you think, oh, I'm scared. And we shouldn't be scared. We just need to have the information and then make the right decision for yourself. I don't like to shame people whether they take hormones or don't take hormones. It's a very personal decision. And just what I do think is inform yourself.
Exactly.
Learn more about hormones, read about it, get coaching with you, or learn to talk to your doctor about it. There's so much information out there now that they didn't exist before. And of course, the science is evolving. So always be a little skeptical. I think it's anything I look at is always with an eye of skepticism and understanding that the science can change, and that's okay. We have to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you've got a digital copy of the Longevity Master Plan and the Eating for Longevity Cookbook. So you're giving that away, are you?
Yes.
Okay, so where can people find that? Where can people find you, and how can they work with you?
Okay, so hackmyage.com, and I will give you the link because the Longevity Master Plan will be on the first page. You should be able to see that. If you don't, I'll give you the link. And the code will give you a code. I don't remember what code you want. Or should we call it Karen?
Yes,
code?
sure. Just Karen. Yeah.
Just Karen.
Everybody, it's going to be Karen. Yeah.
Karen, and that's for free for you guys. And if you have questions about it, you can contact me. Anything, I'm very happy to help you through that. But I will have to remember, I get a code, Karen, the Longevity Master Plan, and I'll give you the link too. So in the show notes, you can just go and click on the link and go straight to that book, download it.
Yes, I'm going to go get it myself. And you have group coaching, and do you do one-on-one coaching as well?
I do. Yes, I do both. I do one-on-one coaching. We also have you can per day or for certain number. If we have a program, if you want to go through a program, we have a program even without me. There's a lot of options out there. So if you go to hackmyage.com, I'm revamping the site. So you'll have, I'll keep adding more and more programs, more about optimizing menopause from a biohacker perspective and a gerontologist perspective. so it'll all be there on hackmyage.com.
Great. And be sure to check out her podcast, you guys, because if you like my podcast, I think you'll really like Zora's as well. So that's also Hack My Age. So I'll put all those links in the show notes, and you guys can go pick up your free copies and check her out because she's fantastic. All right. Thank you, Zora, so much for coming on the show. And I look forward to having you back one day.
Thanks so much.